I'm Tom Schumacher. I'm Chief Creative Officer of Disney Theatrical and producer of this production of Hercules. You will notice that I have a fine German last name, Schumacher, which you would pronounce. Thank you very much. That's how my great-grandfather Gustav would have pronounced it. He spoke German. I don't. I'm so sorry. But you'll also look at this. The whole mishpucha of camera crew is here. They've all come together. We're here to talk, obviously, about Hercules. What's interesting is that, of course, we have the great Alan Menken with us today. This is his 7th show in Germany. Isn't that something? You've always been keeping count like I do. No, please, he's not here yet. But also, Alan's films have been huge in this country. In fact, there are 13 films that are Alan Menken musicals that have played in German. What is interesting is the Menken oeuvre, the collection of Menken films. I have a stat here. More people have attended Alan Menken's collection of movies than the collection of movies by Christopher Nolan, Oscar winner. More than the entire DC universe. More people than the Avatar franchise, and more people than the Star Trek franchise. So apparently, people here actually really like musical movies. Please tell Hollywood. Alan did 5 off-Broadway musicals that he wrote before the string of films that I can tell by looking at you, many of you grew up on. Of course, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. But it wasn't until those 3 movies came out that Alan first came to Broadway with Beauty and the Beast, which opened 30 years ago this month on Broadway. Isn't that something? I hear them because they're like, we're not even 30 yet. How'd that happen? What's also interesting about Alan's work on Broadway is that 2 Alan Menken musicals are in the top 15 longest running musicals of all time. That is 2 out of 15, and that's out of 10,000 musicals, 10,000 plays and musicals over the last 110 years. It's a very rare group, and Alan has 2 of those. He also has a lot of awards. 19 Oscar nominations, 8 wins. 26 Grammy nominations, 11 wins. 16 Golden Globe nominations, 7 wins. 5 Tony nominations, 1 win. And he's the recipient of a Razzie Award for Worst Song of the Year, my friend Alan Menken. Now, a man of your stature should get you. Climb under, honey. It's Alan Menken.
Yes?
We can all hear you.
Okay. And I just got the Howard Ashman Award.
Oh, you did?
That's right, last week. So I actually have a
Howie, a Razzie, a Tony.
It's a, yeah. Anyway. But I have a regot because of the regatta. That's what it is.
That's what they call it here? Your EGOT? Oh, no, you're a regot.
EGOT, and I got the...
They don't care. They're in Germany. They don't care about EGOT.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Do you know what an EGOT is? Oh, he's an EGOT, too.
Well,
I knew him before a lot of that.
yes?
I have our oeuvre. I have it all here, Alan. But really, we're going to talk about Hercules. But I want to talk about what you do first. Because songwriting, I think, is a mystery to many, many people. So let's start with the first half of it.
Okay.
You wrote this musical with David Zippel. You've worked with so many lyricists. Most famously for people probably in this generation is with the great Howard Ashman.
Yeah.
How did you and Howard meet, actually?
Howard and I met when he was looking for a composer. Howard had never written a musical before. He had written the book for a musical. This is actually something we never discussed, called Dream Stuff, which was at the Astor Place Theater. That Marcia Malamet wrote the music.
Tell me.
I'm sorry. I forgot. I love talking to Tom. I guess it's rude. I'm sorry. Anyway, Howard was looking for a composer, and so he came to my apartment, and we met, and the rest is history, I guess.
Because you've worked with a lot of lyricists. I made a list. The ones that I know that I've either worked with or worked with their work: Howard Ashman, Jack Feldman, Sir Tim Rice, Stephen Schwartz, Wicked, Chad Beglin, Glenn Slater, and David Zippel on this one. makes a great lyric?
Oh, that's interesting. Also, before I met Howard, I was a lyricist.
Well, that's right. You're a good lyricist.
I'm a good lyricist. I am. But I discovered that in working with different lyricists, I was able to have more variety in the music I write. It liberated me, and also I was able to be more prolific.
Do you create the song idea with your lyricist partner?
Yeah, I mean, we never write a song for a project, for a theatrical project, musical theater, without first creating a complete outline of the story, the concept of the score, the style of the score, the world, if you will, of the music, and then song by song, really putting it all in perspective before I let my hands come near.
And before they're writing the poem.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the thing I always tell young artists is don't ever think, oh, I'm just going to write the song and then put it into the musical. The musical is entirely the most important thing. The songs go in, and if they're great, great. But even a great song, if it doesn't work in the musical, just throw it away. So it's all about getting in the room with my collaborators and figuring out what the musical is and what the experience of the musical is, and then writing it.
And how often are you rewriting within the same song?
How often?
I mean, it's always
It's always rewriting.
Can you?
Even when the show is done, we're rewriting.
Can you remember a song you wrote called "The World at My Feet"?
Okay, so when I wrote, after Howard passed away, there was a major change in Aladdin. There was that day called Black Friday, right?
So you'd already done Little Mermaid, you'd already done Beauty and the Beast together on films.
But we started Aladdin actually earlier. And we had a complete score, and Aladdin was a buddy movie, essentially. Then there was a change, and the change was internal, but without Howard involved, because Howard was really sick at that time. And it became much more of a romance. So a lot of the original songs we wrote fell out of the animated, but when we brought it to Broadway, my main agenda was I really want to bring back those songs that Howard and I wrote for the original, songs like Proud of Your Boy, High Adventure, Kamar, Aladdin Kassim.
So the version they know, because Aladdin, of course, was played in this very theater upstairs.
Yeah.
But I really want to hear about The World at My Feet.
Okay, I know. All right, so then...
I hear a laugh from someone else who knows that The World at My Feet.
Well, because I said yesterday I talked about that. So after Howard passed away, I think there was a short period of time where I was attempting to be the composer lyricist. I remember, doesn't matter, put that aside. And then I was teamed with the great Tim Rice, who I knew from the collaboration of Weber and Rice, who had done Jesus Christ Superstar and Joseph and Evita. And so Tim and I met in your office for the first time, and it was arranged that I was going to come over to London to work with him. And so I brought him 3 songs, and I went and I wrote music, and I wrote a dummy lyric for each of them because I wanted to make sure that, how do I put it, the nature of what Howard and I had written would still be carried over to our collaboration.
So you want a flavor of
I just wanted to have
Can
that
you play a little bit of The World at My Feet?
I'm good. Let me first set up The World at My Feet. We know each other for a long time, so we can yell at each other. The Magic Carpet Ride song, I sent him a piece of music that went, the world at my feet. And Tim very wisely decided that really the word feet would be better in the title of a love song like that.
For everybody. Some.
What?
It could be big for some people.
There are people, yes, I think there is a foot fetishist audience out there that I'm sure would benefit.
Not everybody.
Yeah.
How many, because together we've asked you to rework stuff quite a bit, right? I mean, over the years.
That's what we do. It's what we live for. It's to help poor. Okay, anyway, okay. Yeah, I always tell young artists, don't fall, never fall in love with your own work, because you always got to be throwing stuff out. I mean, we'll get to this later, but there was a song we wrote for the original Hercules, which was a beautiful song, but it was the wrong song.
Well, when we say beautiful song, often I think most people, and probably people here, are thinking about melody, because that's the part that kind of touches deep inside you, because you can hear these songs without
harmony and melody.
Yeah.
Yes.
But can you just talk in songwriting about melody? Because when you think about, you know, what is a melody that suits Ariel? What is a melody that suits Belle? What is a melody that suits Meg? And do you think of it that way?
Again, it's harmony and melody and form. I mean, for instance, writing Part of Your World, it started with the concept of just flowing water, and I went to this, and it felt right. And so it built from that into, you know, Part of Your World. There's also an innocence to it, which was, and Howard had this brilliance, he was able to create a lyric that was really establishing Ariel as a typical modern teenage girl who wants to be part of that world. In every case,
But Belle was older. She's more France.
Yes, more bookish, and with Belle, it was a matter of we set her up at the beginning of Beauty and the Beast. We want to have this one song that really sets up the spell, who Belle is, what people think of her, Gaston, LeFou, all of that in this one number. In fact, Howard and I wrote the opening, you know, of that, and then he didn't want to send it. He said, "Who asked for a 7-minute opening number?" And I had to convince him.
Was that the first thing you wrote on Beauty?
Yeah, we wrote absolutely. You know. There goes the baker with his tray, like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell, and we're just going through the town. But we started with little town, it's a quiet village, which led into that. We wanted to just set up her at home, and then boom, into this town. Bonjour, bonjour. We're setting up everything about the world of this musical. But of course, we preceded that with which was all because Jeffrey Katzenberg loved Carnival of the Animals.
And it does have a similarity to Aquarium, the fourth movement.
Yeah, of course, that's the idea, because Jeffrey was not going to have a wonderful executive.
Make it sound like this.
But your job is to work in forms and go, okay, you like that, I'm going to write something that evokes that without being that. But you want to always make a pact with every song, a pact with the audience that goes, oh, I get it. That reminds me, oh, I get it. You want, the music should be leading you emotionally into where the story needs to
be. It leads to the obvious question, because I remember distinctly the idea of Hercules. The idea of Hercules, we used to do this thing at the animation studio where we first met. It was all before the theatrical adventure began, but we would do a thing called the Gong Show, which was based on a game show in America, where people would come out and perform, and if people didn't like them, the judges, they would hit a gong, and the person would be drug off stage. So we did this thing with anybody who worked in animation, the receptionist, the animator, the cleanup artist, the custodian, anyone who worked there could come and meet with the leadership of animation, including the famous Jeffrey Katzenberg, the legendary Roy Disney, Michael Eisner, all these people, and they would pitch ideas to us. Theoretically, we would gong them, but we weren't going to gong. And a guy says, Hercules. No story idea of any kind. But we jumped at it. This guy named Joe Haidar pitches this idea. And then we, at the animation studio, went to the directors of Little Mermaid and Aladdin, John Musker and Ron Clements, and said, you know, there's this idea we could do something with Hercules. And they said, well, we have to talk to Alan. But who said...
They did.
What is your memory? Because I know what happens, and I want to know what you
They said, I thought it was going to be kind of like, this is going to go over people's heads for the most part, Candide. I thought it was going to be very classical Greece, and they said, no, we wanted to have this be a gospel score, gospel-inspired score. And I was like, really? Really? I thought it was strange. And it worked. It actually worked. Because it's still praise to the gods. And building on that, when we brought it to the stage, we built further on the whole world of gospel in terms of what we brought to the stage.
But, so it's gospel, but there's still classic. There's gospel music. There's, would you say the Muses are gospel into a Motown vibe, or you wouldn't call that a Motown vibe?
What do you think, yeah, I think it obviously traverses from, first of all, gospel is essentially the underpinning of Motown and rhythm and blues and all of that. So, yes, the score to Hercules grows out of gospel into Motown, rhythm and blues, rock and roll even. James Brown, the influences are all there. The James Brown influence actually came to the stage show just recently. But the influences in any of the musicals that we write, that's the treasure. To go have the audience go, oh, that I get what you're doing there, because for me, in any of my scores, all of my scores are homage. Musically, I want to do an homage to something bigger and have that serve the story. And in the case of Hercules, it was gospel.
When did you first write, remember?
No, but...
Because the Muses really became a spine.
Muses were incredible, and I was reluctant. At first I was reluctant, because I said, oh God, are they like the urchins in Little Shop a little bit? But then they developed into something else entirely.
Because it is, the Muses, for those people who know the movie, have become so memorable in the movie. In fact, the other night, I was out with, before I came over for this, so it was a month and a half, whatever it was, a year ago. I was out with a fantastic Broadway actress named LaShawns, who's the Tony Award winner, and she was one of, when she was not famous, she was one of our muses along with Lilias White and a number of our friends.
Yes.
But LaShawns told me that she gets more mail now about having been a muse than she did those years ago. In fact, just recently, I looked, some musicologist fellow, teacher, posted an analysis of the muses based on not what we're doing here on Broadway and here in Germany with these fantastic women, but what was in the movie. He posted it, and within 2 months, 350,000 people had looked at this video on YouTube about how you structured their songs. People are very interested in you. This is what I've learned.
No accounting for taste.
We spoke earlier because there's a very famous song, probably the most famous song to the outside world, in Hercules, but it was a replacement. Yes. It was the Hercules sort of thing. Yeah, the original song. I'm sorry. I should what key?
No, what's it? Okay. Stop. Key. Pause. Okay. No one seems to think too much of me here, and I'm glad to tell it to, and they're glad to tell it to my face. I haven't performed this in quite a while. And they're right, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm completely out of place. Somehow there has got to be a reason. Evenings as I try to think it through, there's a bolt from the blue, and I see my shooting star set apart from all the rest. I forget the lyric here. Da 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 da. There are requests. It's a very pretty song.
It was one of my favorites.
And yet we're going, but it feels very kind of, how do we put it? Too soft, too in a way Disney-y, too just it didn't feel like he said we need something with more muscle, and that's where I go. Okay, fine, let's throw it out.
We have more muscle right here. How about we bring up Kaz and Benet?
Okay, and they're gonna play. Okay, I'm out of here.
proficient with this?
No.
See? Okay. This is the song that you might know that replaced Shooting Star.
Auf den höchsten Berg, um am Ziel zu wissen, wer ich bin und warum. Selbst nach 1000 Jahren, wer der Weg es wert, würd mein Leben geben, doch ich kehr nie wieder um. Nein, kein Blick zurück, mag er auch so fern sein. Nein, ich weich kein Stück, keine Prüfung ist zu viel. Selbst den steilsten Hang geh ich einfach an. Mag er auch so fern sein, doch er führt mich an mein Ziel. Heile Jahre, nichts als Fragen, nichts als Einsamkeit. Welche Antwort dort auch liegt, ich bin bereit. Dieser Ort ist da, mag er auch so fern sein. Ich hab Kraft und Mut, träum nicht nur davon. Ganz egal wie schwer, es ist all das wert. Auf den Weg, egal wie weit, um endlich anzukommen. Ganz egal wie fern, dann wär ich endlich angekommen.
Can I just say something? Because he is wonderful. I also want to say something about this band who's walking
Michael
around.
Crosby, he'll be back. Yeah.
He will be back again. He has been my musical director since the mid-90s, going all the way back to Pocahontas, conducting the scores, working with the singers, conducting the shows. Absolutely the best in the business. But more important, he has the most amazing taste in restaurants to go to.
Which is the way we live, essentially.
We're on the road, and he speaks every language. It's amazing every language he can speak. And
Well, I think being here, you arrived in time to see the first preview that we did on Sunday night. But I think this idea of beginning and beginning again. We began the movie. We made the movie. You then begin the process of making a stage show, and then as you join people. So I find it very moving to hear everybody sing that, because it speaks to what we do, which is to create things and then to go around the world and share these things. And each person in this room has a connection to that song. You remember hearing it when you were a kid, you would have seen it on DVD, whatever. And then to now see it here, And for us who were in this building, where we got to rehearse the show and do it, and I've been sitting for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks in the dark with these glorious performers who have been knocking themselves out to rehearse, to prepare, to be given new lines every day. They're getting new stuff today. Were you told that yet? And there's new stuff.
A whole new song. No.
All the time. And the jump in and the commitment, and it's for us who are there in the beginning, and then to see people join this family.
And it's our job also to make sure that we always keep it fresh, always updating the arrangements, giving, always being very sensitive to the new form and trying to...
Well, that speaks to, right, so here we are. So I want to talk about how this came to the stage, because actually, I have a memory, long before we ever put this on the stage, you might have tweeted something about it, or someone else tweeted about it coming to the stage. I called those the martini tweets back in the day.
Wait a second. I was bugging you for years.
So you blackmailed me with a tweet, was that it?
Yes, probably. I don't know. But tweets, they can be very powerful. I've learned how powerful they can be, so you got to be very careful about tweets.
But you were talking about it before I was talking about it.
I actually, my daughter had a Sweet 16, and I took her onto one of the Disney ships. And they had this little cabaret, ship show, cruise show, Disney cruise show, of the muses. I looked at the muses on that stage, and I went, this is really theatrical. And I really felt in my gut that this would really translate to the stage. And then all these years later, because it wasn't just like, let's bring it to the stage as is.
Well, yeah, because a crazy thing did happen, which is friends who run the Public Theater, which is a very large nonprofit theater, friends of mine from like way before Disney time, a guy named Oscar Eustace, who runs this theater called the Public Theater in New York. They have a theater outdoors in New York, in Central Park. And they, at the end of every summer, they do one of these public works things.
Public works,
where
yeah.
Like 200 people get on stage, people who are not actors, people who are, unhoused, people who are, various life challenges and stuff. Children, older people, everyone's on stage. And they came to us and said, we want to do a classic, but we want to do a classical Disney piece, and that would be Hercules. And we all thought, oh no, really, will that work? And there we were in Central Park with 200 plus people on stage. And it was really something. And I tell this all the time because people forget there were 7,000 tickets that we had. Public Theater had some more, but we had 7,000 tickets. And 287,000 people joined a lottery to get 7,000 tickets. And we thought,
yeah.
All of a sudden you're like, man, this is a big free thing. Nobody pays for it, of course. But we learned a lot about the show there. And then we said, how can we do this? And that's when we partnered up with Stage, which we've done so many things with Stage Entertainment. And this is our third one, just in this theater alone. We have 2 other pieces playing down the street that he didn't write, so we never talk about those.
You mean the
it's about
Lion. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the Lion King, which it's the only big hit you didn't write. Give me one. Give me one. But there are 7 new songs in this. There's 5 in the show. There's more new material. We reprise a lot of songs, and they come back in and out. But there's 5 in the film version, in the ultimate version, and there's 7 in this one. Want me to tell you what they are? I see you squinting.
Well, we have 7, but in the movie we had 7 songs, but we had reprises.
Yes.
Okay, man.
So they're not really. It's really 5 tunes, but you can count them as you want.
But yeah, but
I didn't pay you by the tunes. It was okay. Actually, I did.
You did. You did. Yeah, but the DNA was in the original.
So what did you think about when we started? Did you then go back through the story again? Because you and David Zippel then, as we began to shape this.
Yes, absolutely. We went back and looked at. For me, the biggest thing I wanted was a song for Hades. It wasn't going to work for the animated, but having a Hades song was really important.
Do you like writing villain songs?
Of course. Villains are so much fun. And they can come in so many shapes and sizes. They can be hilarious. They can be real. You go all the way from hilarious to truly threatening. Hades is a very original villain with all of his, you know, he's cool and the flames, and he's both funny and threatening at the same time. So that was one, just like as with Budick, a song for the beast. That's sort of the law, or for Mermaid, a song for Prince Eric, and the ones you don't get. And then there was also, obviously, you had to expand the muses and have more for the muses to do, which we did. More for Meg, a duet for Herc and Meg, another song for Phil. But as it developed, and the concept of how we developed it, and Public Works helped a lot with that in terms of the community and a relevance to contemporary world. That influenced so much of the changes that we made. And so yeah, it's just a process of continually taking the temperature of what you have. And then you bring in a director like Casey Nicholaw, and that's going to be an enormous. So
I was going to ask that question, because Casey Nicholaw, who's of course did Aladdin with us, and he's famous for Book of Mormon and many other things, and our experience together on Aladdin was so extraordinary working with Casey. So do you go back and forth with him, yeah? On like who needs a song, who doesn't, how, because he thinks so musically. Are you thinking when you're writing, oh, Casey could make a great number with this? Or?
Well, I do think about Casey, but mostly I think about the character of the story. And I'll think about how do I sell this to Casey, because he's also will be thinking about movement a lot. And he is so much fun to work with.
What was it like for you to watch it? Because we've done workshops and various versions of the show before we came here, but on Sunday night, we put the whole thing together, including the beautiful design work that's up there, the exquisite costumes and beautiful scenic elements, what everyone has done. What was it like for you, though? Because you're also watching it in a language that you don't speak, but you know what everybody's saying mostly. There was
a lot of layers. First of all, yes, language, and trying to figure out the new architecture, the revised architecture, if you will, of the piece. I say architecture because I often refer to a parallel for what I do as a composer is I'm an architect, building a house that others are going to live in, and you want to make sure you build it really solidly so they can do what they want with it, but the house will still stand. So I looked at it and see where the structure was working and where I wanted to hear something else or not. So there's a lot.
But we're in process. I think a lot of people, particularly with someone like you, you've flown all the way over for this, but you didn't come over, as much fun as it is to meet with all of you to do press. You actually came over to work on the show.
Right.
I mean, I've had 4 emails today with your thoughts.
I gave some notes.
And discussion. And I came in, and I was in the lobby earlier, and I came in, and you were huddled with Casey Nicholaw, the director choreographer, in the corner. And you're engaged, you fully engage with this stuff because you grew up inside. Is that why? Because you feel comfortable in it?
Well,
because you certainly, and I have worked with, as you know, composers who sort of airlift in for opening night, but that's not you.
No, I'm invested in what I've created, and that investment started with my relationship with Howard and how he was directing, I was musical directing. These were our babies. We were hands-on. Every demo, I'm sure many of you have heard them. Howard would sing Ariel, or would sing Ursula, and I would sing. We would play the parts, and basically we're creating blueprints, architecture.
Are you ever surprised when you see a performer play something?
Yes, a lot, and it's often exhilarating, and sometimes the surprise is not so hot. It depends on what it is. We may go, oh, wait a second. No, where are you going with that? But you always learn something. Because I always thought musical theater is the most collaborative form imaginable. You have a composer, you have a lyricist, you have a book writer, then you have a director and a choreographer, then you have all lighting designer and set designer, and you have the producer, which is extremely important. But I'm not blowing smoke here. Producers are very pivotal because that's where the buck stops. But then the last collaborator is the audience, and you're learning from them in previews all the time. And basically going off of their reaction and go, oh, okay, oh wow, let's build on that, or oh, wait a second, let's change that. And
for you, that's everything from what are we seeing, the orchestration. I mean, notes this morning have included orchestration notes, everything about how the songs are constructed, but also you always are involved in the narrative of the show. You don't isolate to a department.
I am. I find that's why I find musical theater so wonderful. When you're attaching music to a story and characters, it just amplifies it. I always talk about how the Disney movie that actually influenced me the most was Fantasia, because it was these incredible classics, and then adding the visuals. Just for me, after that, I always heard music with a visual in mind. It was always attached to something bigger, and either visual or story. And that marriage of music and concept and emotion, certainly above all else, is just the most wonderful gift to share with people.
Well, why don't we close out by one more gift?
Okay.
Because we do have Mayanne and the Muses here.
We do?
And it's a chance I love this song so much. I won't say I'm in love. Cause you have to come back up. But you're coming up. This is it. Come on up. We're going to go. We'll see some of you outside. We're going to close. Don't hit your heads, ladies.
Yes.
Please. Are we all up? Okay, so
What's up? What's the speakers?
we're going to touch it. Where are you going? Okay, thank you all for coming. Here are the ladies.
Ich hab ein Händchen für Probleme und immer schon die falschen Typen. All diese tollen, edlen Helden. Nein, ich bin durch damit, nichts als Mythen. Das wird sich noch rächen. Pfeif auf diesen Muskelhaufen, glaubt er echt sein Lächeln reicht, um ihm das abzukaufen. Bloß nicht etwas fühlen, denk nur an dein Deal und an dein Ziel, das war.
No, go home, slow, okay.
Okay, we're done.
Jolan als Meg und die Musen.
Precious
Chastity. Uzo, Leslie, Shakina. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Well, stay here for your last applause. I mean, hey, they don't want you. Mr. Alan Menken. Thank you. And Thomas, please come up and take it down. Thomas, one more time. Whoa!
That was it, just for him. We bow before Alan. It's all the time.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for being with
Come
us.
see the show, please. Okay.
So, das wollte ich natürlich in keiner Weise. Wir kommen Schumacher zum Schluss von mir. Vielen Dank für eure Aufmerksamkeit. All diejenigen,